Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another Chatting with Wisdom. For those of you who don't know who I am, Rollie Allaire is my Earth name, and Gigudomi Gwinkwe, apparently I forgot who I was. Gigudomi Gwinkwe is my spirit name, and I am your host for today. So, Chatting with Wisdom is a weekly interview series that celebrates women, and so I'm always so excited to be able to meet up with new women each week. So I invite you to join me in my private Facebook group, Mind, Body, Heart, and Soul Connection, as well as you can find a similar group on Telegram where we share positivity. So today I would like to welcome Giselle. And of course, I just lost her intro. Where did it go? Technology has not been my friend this morning. So Giselle Galper aims to make an expert career help accessible, quick, easy, and low cost. As the daughter of an Argentine immigrant who went to college while Giselle was growing up, Giselle saw firsthand how difficult it could be for a Latina woman to advance in her career. While a General Counsel and balancing life of the mom and professional, Giselle started giving talks to groups of women about how to negotiate their pay and navigate through and around biases. Frustrated that there was no way to give people encouragement and additional learning after her talks, Giselle started looking for a career app to solve the problem. Unable to find one, Giselle embarked on the journey of learning how to build a career app to do just this. Now she is the founder of Chia Seed, a career fitness tracker that helps users up their career game with small 1 to 2 minute personalized actions. You might be wondering why it's called Chia Seed. The name Chia Seed is a play for the acronym Career Helping Expert App. I love that. Chia. And the food chia, which is empowering and energizing in small doses. Oh, I love that. Chia Seed is available now in the App Store, Google Play, and their feature complete beta will be released February 2022. So this is what we're talking about today. So I love that. I love that how you did that with that acronym and how you tied chia to the chia seed. That is beautiful.
Thank you so much.
So how are you this morning?
I'm good. It's 7 a.m. in California, and we have been making some changes to our app based on feedback, mostly all from women. So I'm so excited that your guests are women, and that you really grab onto positivity, because I think that's so important for women, especially in their careers, so that they can advance and not only advance, but get that positivity back. The energy that they can get from work can help women in their lives to give to other people, because we give to so many other people.
And we really do. And I like how you said that, like, we give so much to other people, and that it's sometimes challenging that we forget that, and other people forget that we need that nurturing. We need that support. And if we can give it to ourselves, then that makes a huge difference, right? So as a mom, as a wife, as a caregiver, you're constantly doing all these different things and still trying to advance your career. So still trying to do your work. And I know that I've often gone back to COVID and how things got shut down. And here in Canada, and I believe in the US as well, it was the women who ended up having to stay home to look after their kids when all the schools got shut down and had to help. So yes, there were a few dads, but for the most part, most of the people that I talked to, it was the moms that were trying to navigate between now having to have their kids at home, working from home, if they were even still working, and so that they can navigate around all the different components of everything and how to be able to kind of navigate through all of that. And it always seems to be the women that have to take a step back in their career.
It's true, but I would ask your listeners and you to think about reframing that, to say, like, from the have to. So one of the things I noticed, I totally agree with you, that the moms stepped into the school problem. And what that put a lens on was that the moms were already handling it school. And it was this, what is called this invisible work. And the moms were spending anywhere from 30 minutes to 5 hours a week, helping with homework, filling out the forms, organizing the after, all that stuff, right? And then what happened is that there wasn't a paradigm shift in COVID, right? So the moms, maybe it's easy to say, hard to do, but the moms didn't say to their partners, whether they were single, divorced, their extended network, or married, I can't do this. They literally said, I'm responsible for school, and now I'm going to lean into the whole thing. And that's the type of thinking, kind of intentional thinking about career, that I get excited when women start doing. It's not that there's going to be this huge shift, the tectonic plates aren't going to move, but just thinking, wow, I was responsible for, 30 minutes to 5 hours a week. I can't step up to 30 hours a week. And if I do that, what needs to change? I'm also responsible for, and this is true in many families, the getting to 50-50 is a really nice idea, but it's not real yet, at least in the US. The laundry, the cooking, the cleaning, the organizing, paying the bills. I mean, the list is huge. Taking care of elderly parents, siblings, even volunteering in the community, right? And so thinking differently about our time and what we have to do is a huge part of why I chose to embark on this app, because I think when we start, if we can find that positivity in our work and we really like to do it, we're going to be a little bit more pushed to ask for the help that is needed. And not only help, but like with our partners, to not even view it as help. That's one of the biggest problems, is when your spouse is helping you.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not helping you. They're everybody's children. Yeah. And it's everybody's house, and it's everybody's eating. So we've got to, finding these and creating these partnerships and these support, whether, I think we were talking earlier, like, sometimes you have to create that support for yourself, the school support. So there were some working moms in my area who joined together into pods, for example, right? They weren't necessarily looking for a partner to help them with the school thing, but they split it among other women. Really an amazing solution to the problem. And they were thinking really intentionally, like, I can't drop out of work, or, I need to keep advancing, or I need to be present. So I do think COVID put a huge magnifying glass on women in career, but it hasn't created new solutions. Working from home to me is not a solution for the mom balance problem. And sometimes it's even worse.
Well, and I like how you actually reframe that, because you're right. It is typically the moms who make sure that the homework gets done, that they sign all the permission slips, that they, most of them, and fortunately I had boys, and so we had a number, and the boys' classroom was my one son's classroom was more boys than girls in the one classroom, and it was nice to see a lot of dads that were able to come and participate. But it was still, the majority was still moms that were actually taking the time off work, if they were working or if they were at home. And even if they are stay-at-home moms, then there's still work to do. There's still meals to plan. There's still cooking to do. There's still the laundry. There's still all those things. And so I really like how you mentioned about being able to reframe that thinking of how that happens. And so like when you talk about like everybody needs to eat, everybody needs to have clean laundry, everybody needs to, so they're not supposed to be one person's chore, and it's not supposed to be about helping. And those were some of the things. Because I only had 2 boys, I didn't have any girls. So I was fortunate not to have to, that I was able to get them out of that thinking of these are girls' roles and these are boys' roles, and like doing all that gender specific type roles that society has put in place. Because my kids knew that we all set the table, we all clear off the table. Whoever's cooking, if one person's cooking, everybody else does the dishes, and the one who cooked actually gets to go and chill and relax and things like that. So and it's things that and I see that with my son in his relationship, is that he's like, well, I cooked, you clean, like right? So you cooked, I'll clean, like that kind of, So
I would always rather clean.
I'd rather cook.
Right.
So it's like, you guys can do the dishes. And if I am the one that has to wash dishes, we have a dishwasher, fortunately. But if I have to be the one washing the dishes, I'm washing, I'm not drying. And we don't dry our dishes in our house. We actually wash them, put them in the rack, and then we put them away later for any pots and pans and stuff. So, but it's just really important for us to be able to have that different view, that different perspective of how to be able to shift our thinking in that respect, so that we can advance our careers. Because that is one of the things that I see so often is like, well, I got pregnant, and so I had my children, and then I had to stay home. And again, I was really fortunate that after my first son was born, that I was home for the period of recovery that I needed to for healing, because I had an emergency C-section. So it was a little longer healing than I had anticipated. But then I was able to return back to work, and his dad stayed home and looked after him. And then when my second son came along, it was the same thing. We did the same thing. I stayed with him for as long as my recovery, and then dad took over, and dad looked after them while I went back to work. And so it was nice to be able to see that balance and shift. And I know that in Canada, or at least in Ontario, I shouldn't say all across Canada, because I don't know how that part works, but in Ontario at least, is that dads can actually take a mat leave.
Oh, that's so great. And that's more true in the US, but they don't take it. And what I think is so important in what you're saying is where you heard again, where the woman says, I had to, right? I had to stay with the child. There was no one else. Or one thing I hear a lot that drives me actually berserko is, it cost more to have the care than I was making, or it wasn't worth the money. But the problem is that's very short-sighted for so many reasons. First of all, you've invested in getting to where you are in your career. And this is why, this is one of the primary reasons I built the app, because 1 of 5 women leaves the workforce. This is pre-COVID, mid-career, due to, forget about babies, lack of satisfaction, not enough pay, or not enough advancement. And what I really hung my hat on was satisfaction. It's not just that it wasn't worth it financially. They weren't getting enough out of it because they didn't really pursue a career that they were thinking about. I'm going to stay in this career. There was this thought in the back of their minds, I'm going to have kids, so I'm going to do the job and I'm going to do well. But maybe I'm not going to go after that thing I really, really want, because, that won't work for when I have kids. And it creates this self-limiting future where the woman says, I'll give an example in the tax world that someone gave me who was very senior at a big accounting tax firm in the United States. And she said, what happens is the women tend to gravitate towards the work that has a little bit less of a busy season, less travel, these things, because they're planning on having kids. But then they don't get the advancement. The work isn't necessarily as interesting.
Yeah.
And then they're in that less interesting work. And maybe they haven't had the pay lift because it's not quite as demanding. So now they have babies, and the choice is find a daycare or a family member. So I love that you had a family member, because to me, that's the gift. When a family member can be there with you and help with your child, and you have a village, then that's the best gift ever. And I hope to do that for my own boys and their families one day. But you pay for a nanny, or you pay for daycare, or whatever you do, it's very expensive. So it's easy to say, by the time I get my nice clothes for work, and I do my hair, and I drive my car, or take the transportation, I'm not left with much money. But the problem is, when I had my first child, my multiple of pay that went up from my first child to my exit at that job 17 years later was huge, right? And so it doesn't consider that perhaps you as the woman, maybe you are going to be primary breadwinner mom. Maybe you have the big career success list.
Yeah.
Or maybe you get joy from your work, and that joy carries into your momhood. Or maybe you can step back a little bit from work, but you can juggle both so that you can go back more easily, because it becomes very difficult to go back to work. There's this myth that you can just go back.
Yeah.
But when you look at the data, there's a nonprofit in the United States, which is really amazing, called iRelaunch. And they help women who have chosen to step out more than 2 years relaunch. But usually I went to one conference, and what I saw, it wasn't 2 years that people had been out. It was 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And now they wanted to go back. That's hard. And that's actually another reason that I really wanted people to have a tracker for their careers for women, because women are promoted, hired, advanced on experience, and men on potential. And so when you go back to work, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, having a log of everything you've done is so important, that experience, so you can go back and refresh your memories and stories. One of my biggest takeaways from the iRelaunch conference I went to was, wow, it's hard to remember how to sell yourself when you go back in. So if you keep working even 2 days a week, and you manage the juggle, so maybe you don't take away tons of money from the situation, you now have we hope, positivity from working, right? That it's actually filling your bucket, not emptying it. And you have the key to keep going and step back in more easily. So I think it's just that reframing of what I have to do, what society says I should do. We know that young women whose moms worked advance more at work, they negotiate better, they ask for more opportunity. So a lot of women just don't have the role models of continuing to work. So we need to help women reframe their thinking about, wow, there are so many ways I could go about this and get the help I need and actually get that positive feeling from work.
Yes. And I love that. And I love how that whole thinking is so much different than what most of us are used to. And you're right. So for the most part, I had a stay-at-home mom. She would get these odd jobs as we got older in school, and so they would last for a short period of time, and then summer would come along, and then so she would then stop working, and then so she would get another job again another fall, and that kind of thing. So because she would be home most of the time until we were older to look after ourselves. And then she started working a little bit more frequently. But you're right. So it has that shift and that change, and it has that, and it brings that thinking as to what it is that we're going to be doing and moving forward. So
well, I think you've said something like, obviously your mom felt she needed to make money. She got those jobs. And I think a lot of times people who are talking about career, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but they're really senior. They're in senior roles at companies. They're leaders. They've made it to VP or CEO. And the reality is they're earning a lot of money. But in the United States, 95% of women earn under $100,000 per year. And the average professional woman earns around $60,000 per year. And so that isn't, the type of thinking is, wow, if I could just get that woman who earns $60,000 a year, if she can earn even 7% more every year, that's a few $100s a month of take-home pay after tax year. That can pay student loans. It can pay for a car payment. It could pay for something for your child or a parent. We're not trying to say we're going to get every woman into the C-suite. What we want to do is make sure every woman is paid market pay, that she's getting positive energy from her work, that she is moving forward, and it's allowing her to work in her community, help her family, all these things that she's already doing and wants to do. We want her work to enable that.
And one of the things that I like that you said is that small increase, right? It doesn't have to be huge increases, but having that small increase will actually make a huge difference in terms of how things are going to, how you can actually improve and where things are going to
and get the help you need or whatever it is. I mean, we live in such a stressful time where people are struggling with their mental health. And I think for those women who are working, you spend a big chunk of your time at work. And so if it's not a positive for your mental health, then what is it? Because if it is draining you and you are going home at the end of the day tired and depleted, then that's a problem that we have to solve. And I think it's incumbent on, our countries, our governments to really step in and provide supports. And I think Canada provides more support than the US for women, but it has to happen with each woman, right? If we don't take it and own it and ask for it and push for it, then it can't happen. And so we can't wait for the help to come upon us. We can't wait for our companies to change everything they do, because we'll be waiting too long. Oops, I can't hear you.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. I have my office door open and my husband just took a phone call and I could hear him. So I muted myself so that people weren't listening to this conversation. But yeah, so like it makes a huge difference when we can have that, and it's just these little steps. So tell me a little bit more about the tracker app. So tell me a little bit more about how that works.
Okay, great. So, as we were talking, it's an app and it's evolved. So you announced that we were ready for a full feature beta in February, which is true. We did that. We released the app February of 22. And through June of 22, we had a framework of trying different use cases for help that people might need, like starting a job or an internship or negotiating your pay. And what we saw from the users that were in there was, one, the users needed a little bit more direction in using the app that we were providing. So only about 25% of the people, because this is a new type of product, could really figure out, what am I supposed to do with this thing really well? Because we can look at the analytics and see people who were really getting the most out of the app. And then we saw about, another chunk of people were using the app, but they weren't necessarily getting the most out of it. And then some people were using it for one thing, but they weren't tracking. So the idea of the app is that we want to encourage you to track your accomplishments and your shout outs and how you feel about your work. And we want to frame that in a way that you understand how it's advancing your career. So we stepped back this summer and we said, who are the people who are getting the most out of this career app right now, the earliest adopter? And what we saw is that it was almost entirely women. The app works for men and women, but women or underrepresented talent get different content because it's interactive. So based on your identity, gender, race, and we hope later career and your experience, you'll get slightly different content or radically different content. So women are going to get a lot more about what's happening to them in terms of bias. Underrepresented talent will get some, and men, of course, won't get information about that because it's not the white man won't get that same information. So the idea is that what was the problem that was best for our users? So it's this underrepresented talent, mostly women, and we're noticing they're feeling stuck or blocked or not satisfied. And so as we reframe the app to make it easier to use, and that version will be coming out roughly around November 15th, so in the App Store, we decided to focus on the performance review. In the US, depending on who you listen to, 7 out of 10 people, 9 out of 10 people have some type of review process. And everybody needs to talk to their manager about advancement, even if you're a gig worker. So we've framed it in a way so that people can really think about, how can I advance through that process? And we can navigate that bias, because there are hundreds, maybe thousands of products offered to companies to help them give reviews to their talent. But there's nothing out there to help people realize, what do I need to do to make the most out of those moments and to advance through my system? And so we're encouraging people to track what they do and understand how they feel. But then we also, as they level up through the levels, teach them about how to talk yourself up to get the work you want, how to ask for the work you want, how to network for that work, how to deal with difficult conversations. And then for people who don't want to level up like that, right? A lot of people don't want to. We offer resources for how to manage your self-assessment and how to manage your review so that you can just go in there and write a better self-assessment. and have a better review meeting, because it shouldn't be that you have to be the type of person who's leveling up to get the benefit, but we do want people to track. We really push it, because if you just track one accomplishment a week, think about this. Everybody does one thing a week. At the end of the year, you have 50 things to talk about. And in 5 years, you have 250. And if you're that woman who steps back from work or stops out, 2 years later, you have this whole repository. We encourage you to organize it into collections like on Pinterest or Visco, so you can have themes. You can share it with people to help you write your resume or get feedback. And so the idea is that the app is a tracker. There isn't another one out there. You can use an Excel spreadsheet or your notes, but we really want to make it easy for people. We also have these challenges in the app. So like if you have a small friend group, and we're seeing people do this, which is exciting, you can create a networking challenge together, or a talk yourself up challenge, or an accomplishment challenge. And the app sends notifications, push notifications to your friends. And then there's a leaderboard. So we are, our goal is to make it more and more something you can do with a small, intimate group, and that you can share with these people who care about you. So much of career, and, you know, I think it's fine, but like the people who are talking on TikTok, they're fabulous, but they don't know you, right? They don't know that you are excited about giving presentations, but you're an analyst, or you're the person who does the presentations, but in fact, you love graphic design. So when they see your list of things, they don't know. But if you show it to your friend or your mom or your last manager, they have more insight, and they say, hey, why aren't you talking this up? Or I thought you said this. So we want people to share with the people who really care about them, and to leverage their mentor relationships and really make it easier for their mentors. So for me, I have been a mentor of lots of people, and I love the idea of their sharing their accomplishments with me with a link, and I can look at everything all organized and say, oh yeah, then why don't you say this, or why don't you say that? Because it can be very time consuming to be a mentor. So we're, I guess I'm very hopeful that the mentors will see this as a way that they can do more mentoring and more effective mentoring of women, because it does take a village, right? It's like your father-in-law, your old manager, different people you meet, everybody contributes to your success.
And it really does make that difference in terms of that connection. And so because I do a lot of mind, body, heart, and soul kind of stuff, and it really still ties into, and when we get together as women, that's one of the questions that I will often ask is like, what are your what's your accomplishment? What have you done? Where are we cheering you on today? That kind of thing, right? So that's one of the things that's also really helpful is like, yes, somebody actually was able to get their kid to bed on time without a whole bunch of stress, and for a whole week, right? Like that's a huge success. Or they were able to get up in the morning and have time to shower every single day. Like,
well,
yay,
celebrating these small things. And also, I love what you said, every day. So one of the things about tracking the small things you do is understanding, I do this every day. I do this every month. I close inventory every month on time, and I'm successful with my team. That's a big thing to talk about. But somebody who does that might not see that in, like, they're like, oh, I close inventory, but I'm not really doing that much. But when they write it down, it gives them the power to see the power of their experience. And it's that power. If we can just get women to see that power, and they can add in there getting their kid to bed, right? So there are some people using chia seed who have told me they're using it for their personal things too, which I love, because where do you put that? Where do you put, I got my kid to bed? Or like, I woke up and I did 20 minutes of exercise, right? Like, you know, you might have an app that is tracking that. You might use a Peloton, but you might just do sit-ups, right? Where do you tell yourself, you know, I did it, right? Yep. Or I spoke up at the meeting today. That's an accomplishment.
So, and it really makes that difference in terms of our own being able to build ourselves up and our own self-esteem and our own self-confidence and that part of things, right? So like we have I have a program, and at the end of the season it's always about like where were we and where are we now, right?
Exactly. Progress. And it's not about, how high did I get?
Yeah.
It's like progress. And in fact, one of the things we're doing with this new version of the app that I'm super excited about is we have review check-ins that the person gets monthly. And there's like a quarterly one that's longer. And we're really asking you to look at your progress. We ask these questions like, does your manager know your goals? Does your manager support you? And really it's about 12 questions. And as you change your answers to them, you're seeing your progress.
Yeah.
Through that. But it is only about progress. We can't worry that we didn't get from A to B. All we can control is that we took the steps to make the progress. And that's really exciting that you do.
And it's about those steps, and it's about those baby steps. And sometimes we think that we're going to have like these extravagant steps. And some of us do. And some of us are very fortunate to be able to have like this great, big, huge leap. But it's always about all those little things that bring us to that next step.
Well, it's very true. So one of the things in the research that's a little murky, but in general, we know that women do ask for more pay. They don't necessarily ask for more advancement. There's not great data on that, but they definitely ask for more pay. And then the question is, why aren't they getting it? Well, we have this bias about experience, which is huge. We also know that women have often less market information because they're talking to other women. They need to get out of their silo. But the other thing is that since women are advanced and promoted on experience, it's like I'm a broken record about this, but it means that you have to ask for these small experiences, these little ones, to go to the meeting, to shadow, to work on the project. And then when you get to the point where you're asking for more pay or the promotion, first of all, you feel like you deserve it.
Yeah.
Because you've got this experience list that's nice and meaty, but also the other person, first of all, you've been asking that person probably, and they're seeing your experience, and now you can talk about it. You're building up with those small steps to get these things. So women are asking. There's some articles. If you type into Google, women don't ask, you'll find a lot of articles that say that. But in fact, the research is very old. You look at the newer things like out of Harvard and Cornell and Yale, women are asking. And so, but we've got to ask for these small things. We can't expect people to notice them. Mm-hmm. I have a dear friend. I just saw her this last weekend. She told me this story early on in her married life that has stuck with me. So she got married right out of college, like 23. I got married much later. And she said that she was telling her husband all the things she did, like the laundry. And he said, I didn't marry you for the laundry, right? And that stuck with me because that's easy to understand. But now you're at work. And you're the person who always organizes the binders after the whatever, or you're the person who makes sure that all the clients are followed up. But you know what? Maybe your boss didn't hire you for that. And so it's figuring out what are these important things that your boss did hire you for and doing those. So we do have to be careful that we're not doing the small things that don't matter.
Yeah. So I like that. And I love that analogy of I didn't marry you for the laundry, right? Because like that makes a huge difference as well, because sometimes that's all that we look at is that small little piece of like all the list, like the grocery list of all the little things that we do, right?
Exactly. And there might be a little thing that you do for your loved one or your boss that is huge for them. So one of the things we have in our content we repeat over and over is this idea of what is success and how does your boss define success? And are you talking to your work network, an industry network about that? Do you really understand what that is? Because in school, and this resonates with a lot of women, so we know women do better in school through master's programs than men do. And we can laugh and say, oh, women are smarter, women do better in school, but men do better at work. So what happens at school is through master's program is there's kind of a rubric, right? There's a grading plan So we know what an A is, an A minus, a B plus, but at work, we have to find that ourselves. It's not our to-do list. So women tend to go for the to-do list, like it's the rubric for the A. And my sense is that the guys, they have not done as well in school, but they are more aware of what's important because there's usually more of their inner circle. Because the guys have the power, they know they're talking about work more, and they're doing these things that are so important to advance. And then the women are rolling their eyes and saying, oh, Joe never, does the whatever, right? Joe never organizes the binders. Joe never calls his clients. Well, it turns out it didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so we have to be aware in our personal lives, it might be the laundry, but the person really values a special dinner once a week. We don't know what that is, or maybe they really value watching a show together. And they don't care about the laundry at all. Could just be in piles. But we care about the laundry, and we think our doing it for them is this act of love or service, these 5 languages of love. But in fact, bosses have the exact same thing. Like right there, they've got a language of success, and we have to figure that out.
And I love that. So I love this app. I'm really looking forward to going and checking it out. And we have a women's networking group that we connect with on Thursday evenings. And I'm going to actually introduce it to our group and say, hey, let's check this out and see if we can help support each other this way. So
that's fantastic. So I think around November 15th is when we're doing this new release, but it works now. So you can see how it works. I'm super excited for women to try it and to think differently. Just one little thing that women think differently can over time create huge change.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. And so definitely we'll give you some feedback if our group of women is interested. I know that I'm definitely interested.
Great.
But yeah, so check and see whether or not that is going to be something that would be helpful for the group itself. So
yep. And you could do a challenge. So those will also be, and those will remain in the next version. So you could set up a group challenge to do something, which is kind of fun because it's just this little reminder. You get, a once a week reminder extra to do it. And that the group is doing it. So I have some women who graduated from business school together, and they're doing these on an ongoing basis with their women's groups. And they said that it's upping what they're doing, which I love.
Beautiful. I love it. So I will definitely share. We meet on Thursday evenings. So I'm going to share that tonight I'll add that to the agenda and share that this evening. So looking forward to that experience. So thank you so much, Giselle, for coming on. And thanks again for reshifting the day, and looking forward to connecting with you again.
Great. I really enjoyed talking to you, and look, it's daylight here. So
yes, when Giselle first came on, she's like, it's really dark out here.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.